Okay, today we're going to solve absolute value equations, but we're going to use algebra to do it. Now, the main idea, if I start off with a pretty simple example here, and we've got something like this. The absolute value of x has to equal, say, 5. What you got to be thinking here is that absolute value turns whatever x happens to be positive. So there are two possibilities here. Either x is positive 5, in which case, if we absolute value it, that's great, it stays 5. Or the other possibility is negative 5. So you absolute value negative 5, that turns it positive, and it equals 5. Perfect. All right, let's do a slightly more complicated example. So the second example, we're going to try and solve something like this. Absolute value of x minus 2, we would like that to equal 6. Now here's how I kind of think about it. Okay, I got my absolute value symbols, equals, and I want to make it equal to 6. What number could go in here such that it's going to equal 6? Well, I can see there's two possibilities. Either it's negative 6 or positive 6. So what I do over here is I say, well, this is what's inside the absolute value symbols. I would like this, x minus 2, to either equal negative 6, or I would like that x minus 2 to equal positive 6. Now this gives me two equations that I can very easily go ahead and solve for x. So if I just add 2 to both sides, one solution is going to be negative 4. And I do the same thing over here. I add 2 to both sides. The other solution is 8. So that's my approach. Okay, so far so good. Let's up the ante with a little bit more complicated example. Now what's going to make this one more complicated isn't so much what's in the absolute value sign. So we have, let's see, 2x minus 5, absolute value. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that equal something, not just a number, but another expression with an x in it. These tend to be more complicated, okay? In that when we're done, we really have to be certain and check our answer. However, we're going to start off the same way. What we have is this stuff inside the absolute value symbol. So kind of think of it this way. I have the absolute value of something, and yeah, I don't want it to equal a number. I want it to equal this expression. So what could I put inside the absolute value symbols that's going to equal 5 minus 3x? Well, there's really two possibilities. On the one hand, I could have it equal, I will just put brackets around it so it's more clear. I could have it simply equal 5 minus 3x, and that would work. But I could also put inside the absolute value symbols negative 5 minus 3x. Okay? Because what's going to happen is whatever this expression is, even though it says it's negative, the absolute value symbols turn it positive, and it will work. It will equal the right side. So I have two possibilities here. Either I have that 5 minus 3x, sorry, let's clear that out. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so either we have that the stuff in the brackets, which is 2x minus 5, is equal to the stuff on the left here, 5 minus 3x. So that gives me one possibility. So I can make this 2x minus 5 equal 5 minus 3x, then I know it's going to equal the right side. And this is a solvable equation. I'm going to add the 3x over, so this is now 5x. And I'm going to add the 5 over to this 5, so that's 10. And I end up, when I divide by 5, with what looks like a pretty good solution. X equals 2. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the other possibility, and that is that the stuff that I have inside the absolute value symbols, I would like that to equal negative 5 minus 3x. Okay? So this gives me an equation that I can go ahead and solve. So let's expand out the brackets here. We're going to get negative 5, and then we're going to get a double negative, so plus 3x. And I think what I'm going to do is just take 2x's away from both sides, and that leaves me just the 1x. And I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and that's going to give me 0. Now this looks like I've got two solutions, but with questions like this, you can't trust that. You have to go back. So I'm going to clear a little bit of space here. You have to go back. Let's just get that out of there. And check your work. Okay, you have to. So if I think x equals 2 works, then I'm going to plug it in and see what I get. Absolute value of 2 times 2 minus 5. Does that equal, so big question mark, does that equal 5 minus 3 times 2? Well, here I'm going to get 4 take away 5, so that's negative 1, but it gets turned positive, so it turns into positive 1. And guess what, folks? That does not equal 5 take away 6. So this is not a solution. The 2 did not work, so we have to ignore that. Now, what about the 0? Well, if we put in 0, 2 times 0 minus 5, so absolute valuing all of that, does that equal 5 minus 3 times 0? Well, let's see. We would get negative 5, which gets turned positive. And over here, we're going to have 5 take away 0. Yeah, so this is a solution. So we do end up with one solution in this particular example. Okay, let's do our last example of this section. Okay, and so what we have here, we're going to try and solve the following. Absolute value of 2x minus 3 plus 6. And we want that to equal 0. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move that 6 to the other side. Absolute value of 2x minus 3. Does that equal negative 6? Well, this is one of those, don't dive in and start doing all the algebra. Take a look at the big picture. This thing here, okay, because you are absolute valuing it, it is always going to be positive. And therefore, it can never equal the right side, which happens to be negative. So this simply is not possible. So the answer is no x would work. There are no solutions at all. And that ends part 1 of algebra when we're solving absolute value equations.